while ago, I did a review on the Haute42 mini board, and while I thought it was a cute little controller, it didn't have the features that I really wanted. Even though, yeah, it's super inexpensive and it's super tiny. I wanted something maybe a little bit bigger and had some of the other bells and whistles that some of Haute42, now Cosmox Gaming's, all their offerings have. Well, they actually listened, I think, and came out with the B16. And yes, this is, again, a keyboard-style controller, so if you're coming off of mechanical keyboards and that's how you like to play, the B16 might be for you. Once again, we're using MX switches, an acrylic sandwich style, and has a lot of the features like LEDs that other siblings in the class have. So we're going to take a look at this. I'm Zervos with the arcade stick, and once again, I'll be doing an overview, give you some internals, show you how to change the acrylic on it if you really want to customize it, as well as lab time, pros, cons, and finally, is this the controller for you? Well, you'll have to stay tuned to find out. Let's start with an overview of the B16, and first I want to go into what's included in the box. So first, you do have some printed documentation. It is a little bit small. I do need my reading glasses for this, but that's because I'm old. And you do get the kind of stock Haute42 Cosmox accessory bag, which has little rubber feet. This one actually has a longer space bar kind of key, the switch puller, an extra switch, always very thoughtful, and a couple rubber nubs. So if you want to replace one of the black ones with a clear or a red, you can do that. Also, finally, you get a USB-A to USB-C cable. Let's get into the B16 itself. Yep, it is a keyboard switch and cap-based controller, so if you come from a keyboard world and that's the way you want to continue playing, then the B16 might be for you. And yep, this is the second smallest Cosmox / Haute42 controller out there. I mean, just compare it to the S16, and it might be a tiny bit wider, but it's definitely thinner that way. You do have 5 option buttons, including one for turbo, and of course you can remap these within GP2040 if you like. And yes, this is another GP2040 powered controller. You notice you have 2 kind of spacebar keys for up, or I want to see if we can assign this one different. It looks like this is by default going to left stick, so there's that. If you want the extra option, maybe you make these double up. We'll have to test that, I think. Anyhow, yep, you do have WASD, kind of mix box at an angle, which I think is pretty comfortable if you want to play that way, or if you want to play just kind of leverless. You have left, down, right, and that. And yes, everything has lights, and as opposed to the Mini where you didn't have that by default, I believe there's some modders that have put those lights in. So if you have interest, I know it's on a Discord somewhere. Anyway, and yes, you have the extra buttons here, left stick, right stick, or L3, R3. So there's that. Connection is on the side this time. So we'll go ahead and unplug just so we can tour around the edges. Yep, this is another acrylic sandwich design. So you can see there's kind of a PCB layer here, and a couple other layers down there. Totally blank backside. You do have that nice root cell hole here, so if you get stuck, flashing isn't working or something like that, you need to reset. You can hold this in while you plug in. It will be in boot cell mode. You can follow the flash nuke procedure and then reflash your controller. So nothing over here, but on the back you do have USB-A port, so if you have that Magic Boots, you can just shove that in, and yay, now you have PS4, PS5 compatibility. Here's our USB-C port for our main connection, and that's pretty much the overview for the B16. Let's get you some measurements on the B16. So lengthwise, we're looking at about 7 3/4 inches, give or take, and about 195 millimeters. And vertically, we're looking at about 3 3/4 inches or 95 millimeters. And if we toggle this way, with the keycaps, it's about an inch. Without, it's about half an inch or so. So 13 millimeters just with the thickness here, or 25 millimeters including the caps. Let's get a weight on the B16. 10.5 ounces, pretty light. Let's go ahead and compare the B16 to some other models. So underneath I have an M12 Plus, and on top you have an M16, and here's where the B12 stacks up. So quite a bit smaller, and yes, it is a bit smaller than even, say, the P12 here. So yeah, it is the second smallest of all the Cosmox products out there now. Let's go ahead and take a look at the internals of the B16, even though, yeah, it's just kind of a layered board, but I'm going to show you some interesting stuff later. Anyhow, let's go ahead and pry off one of these guys, and let's see if we can get out the switch with just the old switch puller. No, it does not want, oh, maybe. I have hope. Oh, there we go. Awesome. Sometimes these are really smashed in there, and it's very difficult. And you kind of have to break out this guy. Anyway, you do have kind of the standard Cosmox layout, though. This is for MX switches, and it has the extra pins here for that. You do have single LED, of course, and that's pretty much it up top. Nothing else too exciting. I think we're going to get it apart to see more interesting stuff, so let's get to that. Now we're ready to take this apart, and it's held together just like usual Cosmox fare with those carriage bolts, Chicago screws, whatever you want to call them. Anyway, there's 6 of them. I've already removed 5 just to cheat. And here we go with number 6. You can use a PH0 or PH1, I believe. PH1's probably a little bit better. Anyway, I do recommend while you're disassembling these, wear some gloves so you don't get your hand oils all over the place, and do it on top of a nice soft surface so you don't scratch things up. Alright, another thing I did to get this apart was also remove all the keycaps and key switches, so otherwise they get held together by that. Alright, and on the bottom are a couple acrylic layers. One is a spacer, one is that black blank plate. So here's this, and then here is our PCB where the magic happens. So you can see the hot swap sockets are here, LEDs. Here's our RP2040 chip, boot button, which you can get through here to get to if you need to with a sim tool or something similar. You do have a pin map, which is nice, so I would take a picture while you have this open if you don't feel like using the GP2040 pin mapper, just to have that handy in case you figure, yeah, I'd like to remap something to pin 21, or what's pin 21 supposed to be? Well, there you have an idea. So let's flip that over, and on that you have another spacer board that goes like so, although kind of hard to see when it's off camera. There's that, and then there's the top kind of PCB kind of like layer. So that's pretty much it, but I do want to show you what if we want to make this a little bit more colorful. It does take a little bit of effort, but let me show you something here in a bit. Alright, so here's the finished product. So I did replace the acrylic. I laser cut some myself. This is from Houston Acrylic, and it's kind of a bluish, but 1/16 inch. I did put some glitter paper underneath, and on the bottom, 2 layers, so it just has a cutout, which I thought was cool. So if you're sharp-eyed, you probably noticed that these pins look a little bit different than the stock ones. Yes, I did replace these as well. If you are looking for these kind of brass color, I just went out on AliExpress, and you look for the M2 outer diameter. Make sure it's that, because there's a ton that are M3, M4, M5 that will not fit. So make sure it's that, and you should be set to go. I did use 10 millimeter long pins because replacing the acrylic here did not make it any thicker. I mean, adding the paper might have added a tiny bit. I guess if you but 10 seem to fit just fine, so I wouldn't recommend 11 or 12. Some of the other Haute42 Cosmoxes that I've done custom acrylic for, I end up bumping up their screw sizes just because it's something that needs to be done to make it fit together comfortably. So this is an example that, yes, you can get this done. You can get artwork for the B16 done, but it does take a little bit of effort. Now, the supplies nowadays are available over on Focus Attack as well. So you can get the replacement acrylic, at least the top cover. I don't know about the bottom. So that said, you can customize your B16, and here's an example of how.
Tired of your bare and boring fight stick? Want a look that sets your controller apart? Need an artist to help make that happen? If you want to rep your favorite characters or games on your stick, we can help. From collage style to full custom art, the arcade stick has you covered with options at several price points to help make your custom fight stick dream a reality. To learn more, head on over to thearcadestick.com.
Welcome to the lab, and as usual, I want to do some pressure and slide testing. Now, as I've done before in the past with Cosmox products, if you don't have the nubs in, it just slides everywhere, of course, so it's not even really worth it to show that. And the little nubs only add a little resistance, so I'm going to show it with the grip tape so you can see what improvement that makes. But first, let's do some pressure testing. You do get a tiny bit of bowing in the center there, but it's nothing to be worried about. Like if I pick it up, I'm not getting any significant pressure. So let's try sliding with the grip tape on the foam here. And yeah, this is some of the best stuff you can get, really. I'm actually having to apply a decent amount of pressure here. And without, I am trying to actually move this guy a fair bit. So you can see it does not slide around much at all. So this grip tape really works well. Okay, I'm going to just kind of mash some keys here just to show you what this sounds like without any treatment of the audio. So obviously not the most silent switches. They're kind of clacky if I'm doing that. Just kind of simulate some gameplay here. All right, let's just do a little gameplay to show you how it feels, etc. So you just do dashes are reasonably quick. Obviously, with a hitbox, you want to be very quick versus your lever playing friends. Getting used to these keys is kind of strange. I think I've replaced the switches myself, but you know. All right, let's try a half circle. All right, I think that's just my fingers not liking. Okay. These older games, they are pickier about how well you do your DPs. Let's see if I can short hop pretty well. Yep. Okay. Whoop. Missed that one. Yep. That's pretty quick. Of course, just like the mini board, if you try and mash by going like that, if you try to slide, which is a very popular way to guard push in this game, then yeah, you might get your fingers stuck a little bit. So you'll have to do something like that. Just pick them up. Right, I don't have the prettiest gameplay, I know. Alright, let's go and toss ya. And just do some flash kicks for fun. Okay. Up. Okay, so yeah, other than that caveat about sliding, and if you're not used to playing on keys, you prefer buttons, then this does take some adjustment. But if you're used to playing on a keyboard, then this will be right at home for you, I think. Let's do a quick Steam Deck check, and once again I'm trying to do an ultra compact setup to show you if you're in a tight environment, how much room do you actually need to make this work. Alright, so let's go ahead, and GB2040, very compatible. Just set it in X input mode and you should be fine. D input mode works as well, but I just generally prefer X input. Anyhow, so as you can see, yep, it moves around there. So let's load a game just to prove it works in game. But in the meantime, let's go ahead and show you. Of course, the width of the Steam Deck is about 11.5 inches or about 290 millimeters. So there's your limiting factor width-wise. But depth-wise, because we have the right angle connector and the connector on the side, I can get it right up against the little stand. And we're requiring about 7 inches or so, or about 175 millimeters. And just to show you that, yeah, it works in game. So as you can see, yep, it totally works, and I can press buttons and do things. So yes, as usual, GP2040 compatible with the Steam Deck. All right, I want to do a quick web audit on the B16. Now, interestingly enough, if I search for Haute42 B16, second result, that's very good. Usually if it's on the first page, I'm happy. So that's good. Let's go ahead and hit products just to make sure we find it. It didn't really go to the B16 like I'd like it to. But on the page here, it's again kind of their standard template. I'm not offended. I mean, I would again like to see a little star next to the PlayStation 4 just to say you need some extra files, or the little dongle like the Booter 5 or Magic Boots, whatever. Again, if we go up to support here, you get the Discord group, their usual firmware update instructions. I do want the template here, but really what I want is, let's go search it under the Cosmox brand, and I'm afraid it's going to make noise. So that takes me straight here, which is nice. And if I scroll down, it's a little bit different, but a lot of the same at the bottom here, so kind of the same stuff applies. If I go to support here, all right, same kind of stuff there. Now, one thing that is nice on the Cosmox page is if you go over to products, you can get some templates, but not for the B16, even though they have it on their Discord, so it would be nice to have it there. If I go back over here to general, it's just kind of the same questions. Let's actually compare them. Seems like there's a few more here than there are here, so it'd be nice to just concentrate them in one spot. Otherwise, I don't have any real negatives other than those little gotchas I had, so we're doing a good job here. Now that I'm back from the lab, let's talk about what I liked, what we can improve upon, and just some observations about the B16. And as usual, I'm going to start with build and build quality. If you've seen some of my other reviews of similar leverless controllers, then yeah, you know that for build quality, Cosmox does a pretty good job. It uses, again, that tried and tested acrylic sandwich method, so you have layers of acrylic stacked around a PCB layer here, and there you go. Now you have a controller that's fairly durable. It has reasonable amount of weight, nothing that's too light or too heavy, so it's a good balance generally. And finally, the cost of materials is relatively low. So you just laser cut some acrylic, snap together with some binding screws, have that PCB in there, and you're set to go. So the strategy works really well, and again, in this case, why change it, right? Now, sure, on the edges, it doesn't look as pretty because you can see the stacked acrylic, etc. But is it really that big of a deal? I don't know. Next up, on the things I like, you do have MX buttons, or switches rather. So there's like 10,000 of those switches out there. And if for any reason not one of them speaks to you, then just wait a day, there'll be 100 more. It's ridiculous how many MX compatible switches are out there. So if there's one that you like and you really want to try it out, well, maybe the B16 is for you. Now, things I would like to see improved upon. One is a better non-slip solution. The little nubs are kind of their stock and trade. I get it, it's low cost, they're reasonably effective, but it feels like we could have something better out of the box, maybe just larger, like the grip tape pieces or something like I use. And I know Focus Tech now has some full-on foam pads for some of the Cosmox models, so there's that. Another thing I'd like, because I've just been spoiled on a couple other controllers, is these option buttons are real tiny, and it's a minor thing, but just if we could increase their size a little bit, it'd be nice. Not a priority upgrade, but again, it's something that's kind of nice if you can get it. Now we've covered build and build quality, let's move into features and performance. So feature-wise, we have most of what I call the Cosmox feature set. Right, we have GP2040 inside, we have a pass-through port, USB-C over here, extra buttons, RGB, plenty of option buttons, etc., etc. But one thing we don't have is that status screen, and I kind of miss it here. I feel like we could sneak it in here or something like that. I don't know, I'm not an electrical engineer. And it'd just be nice to have, because I feel like I'll go out to my locals for Vampire Savior, and half the time I'm connecting to the Mister and I need to remind myself, oh yeah, dummy, put it back in X input mode. Or I'll start playing on the PS5 and I have to go, oh yeah, dummy, put it back in PS5 mode. Well, the status screen just lets me know right away whether it's working or not, so it's a nice touch. Otherwise, feature-wise, we're pretty well set. There's nothing critical you're missing, so yeah, I'm not going to ding it too hard. Okay, so what about performance and gameplay, etc.? Well, first of all, I need to talk about tournament legality. Obviously, you have these extra buttons, and like a lot of Cosmox series, you do have to be mindful of your tournament legality if you're playing in bigger name tournaments that might ban replicated buttons. Now, you don't have an L3 or R3 up here, so these two are technically legal, but possibly having these two, both being up, could be an issue if you're not allowed to have that. Also, this being here. The solution is you just ply out these switches and keycaps, and you can't physically press them. So just take these two out, or these two out, whichever floats your boat, and you can be tournament legal. As far as other performance and gameplay, once again, this doesn't feel great trying to play with it like you would, an old, DualShock or whatever. So it just doesn't work for that. You really got to play it on a table, because in the lap it's still kind of small, so you got to manage that expectation. If you can balance it on one leg, great, but this feels best on a table, just kind of like a regular keyboard. So there is that. Also, just like the mini board, if you try and mash like side to side, it's kind of difficult. You're better off doing that or something like that, right? Because you press down and it's starting to get caught in between keys, it'll create like its own little valley, and you're going up and it just doesn't work. So maybe if you're conscious enough to rub it that way, it'll work, but I still think you're better off just doing that method. So just be mindful, some slides, etc. are harder to do on a keyboard-based setup. Now I've covered performance and features, let's talk about customization. And you would think that if you have this, you can't customize, but as I've already shown, yes you can. However, I acknowledge fully that I had the privilege of accessing a laser cutter, having acrylic, binding screws, and all the other stuff to make this happen. Not everybody wants to spend the time, money, and effort to do that, and well, that's understandable. Now, Focus Attack does carry the new parts that you need to customize this. So in a replacement for this guy, the new binding screws, etc., etc. So you can customize it, but it just takes extra effort. Otherwise, I mean, you're stuck with stickers or something like that for this guy, and, well, okay. However, as far as other customization, once again, we're using these MX space switches, so you literally have, it seems like, tens of thousands of options out there, with more coming out all the time. So really, good luck finding the one that works for you. I would start with, hey, do I want a linear? Do I want a clicky? Do I want a tactile? And try and work from there. There's probably hundreds of thousands of videos about various switches on YouTube you can get lost in a rabbit hole on. If I were going to replace the switches here, I'd probably go for the Boba U4TX, but that's me. I like a good tactile. And plus it kind of keeps the same box shape that these have. So yeah, there's that. In addition to that, yeah, I could replace all these keycaps with who knows what, and I'd be set there too. Hundreds of colors, prints, what have you. There's just so many options. So there's that. Now, you do have a good amount of customization if you're willing to work at it. Now, one of the wish list items I would like here is a, maybe it's 3D printed, I don't know what form it would take, but a surround at least that would go around, and maybe on the back it kind of catches these pins so it stays securely on. I'm not sure exactly how it would work, but just something that would make the sides a little prettier. And I bet that would be a good 3D printing design project for someone, is to design these Cosmox surrounds. Kind of like I think the footy board has, so there's that. One nice thing, though, I will trail off with, is that the default board doesn't get a lot of fingerprint smears like other acrylics. So, hey, you do have that. All right, that's customization. Let's talk about portability and size. And yes, this guy is the second smallest Cosmox unit out there, so it's pretty portable. Maybe not as ultra portable as the mini board, but I feel like the gain of a leverless up button is definitely worth it. So it just drove me crazy trying to play the mini board and had to remember, oh yeah, I have to hit up there, but not on the B16, thankfully. Of course, this does give you a little bit of challenge lap playing it, but that's a trade-off if you want something that's super portable, something that'll fit about anywhere. If you got a compact rig you need to set up, then here you go. With that said, let's take a look about how it fits inside my smallest tablet case. This is like a 7-inch tablet case. As you can see, it fits perfectly, and I've got room to spare for pens or what have you. I could probably cram my cable in there very easily, and I'm set. So portability and size, yep, you are using the second smallest Cosmox, and just be careful if you plan on playing in the lap for extended periods of time. Let's move on to documentation, and yes, you do have the printed manual that comes with it, as well as the website is pretty good. You can always go to GP2040 CE-info. But one thing I think we're missing here, well maybe two, is we don't have anything printed on the bottom. Would be nice to have those little shortcuts that say, hey, this is the default, hold Y to enter PS5 mode, hold this to enter X input mode, just for reference. I mean, I guess you could put a sticker on, but it would be nice if it was just printed on there. As well as, I'd like to see Cosmox join the big boys and start printing, a model number, etc. on the back, and maybe give it a little bit more flavor here by labeling it something like the Andromeda, the Rigel, the Cygnus, or what have you. Something that's cosmically themed. I know it's silly, but I like that stuff. So let's wrap things up with a discussion on value of the B16. And again, value is kind of that ratio of, is it a good price to, am I getting good quality and features? And with the B16, the cost I've seen is around 35 to 50-ish, and that's just with the base controller itself. If you want to play on PlayStation 5, for example, you're going to want a say Magic Boots or Booter 5 or some other dongle that's going to let you play on there. You just plug it into that USB-A slot And there you go. Now you have compatibility. That might run you, what, $20 to $40 extra or so. So yeah, it can get a little bit up there, a $90 top end at most. But let's look at the feature set. Let's look at etc. See if that's, really what we're after, right? And I feel like you've got a pretty well constructed controller that has most of the important Cosmox features. That's going to play on multiple consoles and do it pretty well. Again, if you are looking for a more traditional arcade controller with round buttons, this is not what you're looking at, right? But if you are coming from that keyboard world, you've tried the arcade sticks, you've tried the round buttons, and they're just like, I don't like it, I want something smaller, I want something that's more familiar, this probably is for you. Let's wrap things up with a discussion on, well, is the B16 worth your time, your consideration, and your money? And I think the B16 is going to appeal to a fairly narrow range of folks. One, you're just looking for, a cheaper controller, and I get it. Two is you've been playing fighting games or other games on, a keyboard setup for the longest time, and you don't want to move away from that. I understand. You want that custom feeling, so you can put in the switches you want, put in the keycaps you want, and away you go. Third is you want something that's pretty small, really small. I mean, this is the second smallest controller that Cosmox offers. So if you want something just to, throw in the glove box or whatever bag you have, it'll fit more likely than not, right? It's not quite Altoids tin sized, but something like that would probably not be workable. So that said, obviously if you're looking for something with more traditional round buttons, it's not for you. If you're looking for something that has the status screen, it's not for you because it doesn't have that. But it does have the LEDs. It does have the PS4 or 5 pass-through, so it's compatible there. It does have the extra buttons that the 16 models have in the Cosmox lineup. So again, I feel it's for you want something that's handy and you came from that keyboard background and that's how you like to play. Well, here's the B16. I feel like it's a great advancement over the mini board. The mini board, I'm not a mixed box player. It just doesn't feel right. My thumb always wants to hit that down button and it's just kind of programmed that way. But the B16 I can get along with at least. I'm not a super fan of the keyboard layout, but if you are, maybe this is for you. Hey everyone, you know what time it is. I've got a kitty, and he's cute and adorable, and yeah, I've got a YouTube refrain to go through. We want your likes, your comments, and your subscriptions. So if you found the video content informative, humorous, insightful, whatever, please leave that like, and of course you can leave a like just for Tony. He'll appreciate it. And also, if you have questions, suggestions, my favorite part was, whatever, please leave those in the comments below. We really appreciate that too. And finally, if you don't want to miss out on future content, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. We really, really appreciate that. So, thanks for watching the video, and Tony says, if you don't do the YouTube refrain, he's gonna get you. The arcade stick.